So welcome to this new chapter of system of particles and rotational motion. Now I have designed this particular video in such a way that I have simplified all the concepts that do come in your examination. Plus I have strictly followed the NCERT syllabus. Plus I have given some relevant examples which will help you to understand this chapter in a much precise way. Plus after certain videos or after completion of 3 or 4 videos, I have included the entrance level sums plus also some practice sums that you can do which will enhance your understanding of this concept. So let's start this chapter by understanding system of particles and rotational motion. First, let's consider an arbitrary object, say M. This is my arbitrary object. Now, if this particular object goes into motion, say suppose in one-dimensional motion. This is my one-dimensional motion. So this type of motion is such a way that if I consider this particle or if I consider this particle and this particle and this, any particle, it's going in a particular direction. These are all going in a particular direction. And if it's traveling, this body is traveling with a uniform velocity. So this is traveling with a uniform velocity V. Say this is V. Now if I inspect any element of this whole system or this body, any one particle, I'll see that this is moving with velocity V, this is moving with velocity V, and the last part, this is also moving with velocity V. So this movement has a unique kind of motion. Now this motion is known as translatory motion. Or this motion is known in a different name, and that is translatory or translation movement. Translational motion. Now what does this translational motion mean? It means that if you want to give a definition, you can say that if a body in any instant of time, all particles of that particular body has the same velocity in any instant of time, if all the particles of that body move in the same velocity, that type of motion is known as translatory motion or translational motion. So this is a definition that you can understand. Now I want to give you another example. Say suppose you have a fan. So this fan rotates. Now if you observe this particular particle and if you observe this particular particle, these two are moving with different velocities. These two particles are moving in different velocities. That is, for equal amount of time, they are covering unequal distances. This, say suppose this point has covered this distance in equal interval of time, but this point has covered this particular distance. One is covering this much distance, another is covering this much distance. So what does that mean? For equal interval of time, they have unequal distances which is being covered. That means they have unequal velocities. That is, the speed of different particles is different. Therefore, this type of motion is known as rotational motion. Now, that this type of motion which has unequal speed in equal interval of time, this is known as non-translatory motion or non-translational motion. This is non-translational motion or non-translatory motion. But why do we define this type of motion as rotation? Non-translational motion and rotation is different thing. We cannot say rotation falls under non-translational motion, or all non-translational motion falls under rotation. We cannot say. But there is a criteria for defining rotational motion. So let's look at that particular criteria that defines a rotational motion. So before that, I want to make one thing clear. Non-translatory motion. All rotational motion falls under non-translatory motion. All rotational motion falls under non-translatory motion, but not all non-translatory motion falls under rotational motion. So rotational motion is a specific type of motion. Now let's see why is this specific. Now if we have a body and if we have a fixed axis, and along that fixed axis, if the whole body rotates in equal interval of time, that is, there is a fixed axis, then that type of motion is known as rotational motion. So let's study in detail what is rotational motion, and before that we have to know, in order to study what is rotational motion, we need to know center of mass. There is another concept called center of mass. So let's have a systematic proceeding of the study of rotational motion in our next video.